got that commercial on television about it. And I'm like, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Murdock. I'm Frank Jones from Bay Pines VA Healthcare System. I'm Service Chief there of CDCE, and thank you for being here today and volunteering to interview with us and be part of the uh, Remembering Our Veterans program. So today, April 26, 2023, we're both blessed to be here at the National Advisory Committee Conference. And we are so glad that you took the time to sit down and answer a couple questions with us. So with that, I'm going to jump into the first question. All right.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Glad to be here. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you. So we'll cover some biographical details first. Do me a favor. Tell me about your childhood, such as where you were born, where you grew up, in your early education.
Great. I was born in a city called Watertown, New York, but I grew up in a small town called Sackett's Harbor, New York, which is on the eastern edge of Lake Ontario, about 60 miles north of Syracuse, New York. I went to a K through 12 school. I graduated with about 38 other kids. So we went in as kindergartners and came out as seniors, and had a great childhood. You know, my mom and my dad, created a great opportunity for me to have a wonderful hometown, and I'm very, very blessed with that. And then as far as education, I obviously graduated from high school, but I was probably in school more interested in sports than academics. So, being eligible to play football, basketball, and baseball were probably the things that kept me motivated to do okay in school. And probably, my interest in sports are probably some of the things that helped me learn how to read better and things like that, because it was like Sports Illustrated, Baseball Digest. Those are the things that motivated me to, you know, to read and to do some of those things that help my academics.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, early days of service. What motivated you to join the military? Were you drafted? Did you enlist? And what branch did you join and why did you join that branch?
Well, my story really is that my mother lovingly kicked me out of the house. We lived in northern New York. I went to community college for a couple of years. Was 3 hours short of a degree, but didn't have a lot of confidence in my abilities to uh, continue on with my education. Wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, and I came back from a vacation with some of my guys that I played softball with, and when I got home, there was a suitcase on my bed, and my mother said, you've got to change your life. You've got to really this you're not really on a good path here, and at the time my parents had a place down in Florida that they had just purchased, and she gave me some keys and said, "Why don't you go down to Florida and get started with your life?" Well, I got as far as Cincinnati, Ohio, and my oldest brother lived there. And she said, "Why don't you stop in and see your oldest brother?" Well, I did that. My oldest brother said, "You need to go back to college." I said, "I don't want to go back to college. I really don't have confidence in my abilities." And he said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'll go down and find a job." I had worked in retail that I thought I'd go into management. And he said, "Have you ever thought about the military?" I said, "No, never." Well, the next day, and my oldest brother was a tremendous influence on me. I really, he was, one of my childhood heroes. Between he and Johnny Bench, they were probably my childhood heroes. And the next thing you know, I was down in front of the recruiter in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I went in and got recruited. Went to the MEP station, did my physical, and essentially they were trying to find me a job. And just before lunch, they said, "Well, you can be a cook or something like this." And it's like, I didn't like that, so I took the free lunch. I got on the bus and went back to my brother's house. And the next day, the recruiter engaged with us again and said, "Well, what do you want to do? And what's going on?" And I said, "I want to continue my education part time." So he said, so they found me a different job, and ultimately I ended up joining the Air Force. And my first duty station was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I was pretty close to my brother again, about 40 miles away. So it was a great influence on me in those early years. And yeah, I'm very grateful.
Excellent. What did you do for the Air Force?
So I started out, I was an administrative specialist, and I worked in a command center at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We supported a 3-star and a 2-star general. And I started out there, was able to work on my education part-time, and then I was selected for a bootstrap program. So I was released from active duty, went back and finished up the last 33 hours of my degree, and then I applied for some commissioning programs, and then I was commissioned as a medical service corps officer, and and so I was a medical service corps officer for the remainder of my career in the in the Air
Excellent.
Force. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. All right. So, were you in, did you serve during a time of war? And if so, what conflict was it and for how long?
So when I started out my career, it was really during the Cold War. So it was really 1981, and it was really the Cold War between the U.S. and Russia, and a lot of the focus was building up our troop strength again. Post Vietnam. So President Reagan was our president, and we, built up the number of troops we had, really invested in the military. I think they had really done some things with even like military pay to try to recruit more folks in.
Mhm.
So that's how I started out my career during that era. And then in 1990, I was stationed in Japan at the time, and we went into Gulf War One, and the war that was on television and
Mhm.
CNN, and I was at the other side of the world. So if it would have been prolonged, I probably would have been involved in that more on a closer level. But because it was so fast, so well organized, so well orchestrated, and we displayed our power at what we could do, it was a pretty short war.
Mhm.
So yeah. So and then after that, I spent some time. I went back to the Air Force sent me back to get my master's degree, and then I was stationed in Italy, and that was during Bosnia uh, time frame. So a
Mhm.
lot of the conflict in Yugoslavia. So I was at a base that directly supported that, and then I came back to the United States after that.
Excellent. What is the most vivid or fond memory you have of your time in the service? And do you recall any particular humorous or funny story? We all know that when you spend time in the military, you see a lot of funny things. That's for sure.
Sure,
So,
sure. So the best times were just the places I was stationed and the people I was stationed with. I had some great assignments. I was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina. I was stationed in Misawa, Japan. I was stationed in Avellino, Italy. So between
mhm,
my interactions with some of the foreign nationals, so the other people that I served with, they were just some great experiences. And I've just been truly blessed about where I got to serve, people I got to serve with, and the things I got to do. Funny, this day and age, I was just in a one of our sessions here, and they were talking about utilizing our cell phones to access our VA health records and all that, which is pretty cool. But when I first went into the military, just to kind of show you how old I am, the first thing I remember is that we got our first fax machine, and I worked with a bunch of guys, and we were in an office, and we were just enamored by the fact that this piece of paper, we got the phone rings, and this piece of paper is coming through the phone line, and
mhm,
with all this writing on it. It's like, wow. And then the next thing, even is same time or a little bit later in my career, but within the next couple of years, is I can remember when we got our first computer in our office, and all of us, our desks like faced the front of the room, and the computer was in the back of the room, and I think everybody was so afraid of that computer that nobody even looked at it or touched it for like a year. And back then, you had a disk with your program disk, and you had a disk with your content of your files. And so, I mean, now when I look back at that, that's probably one of the most humorous things to think about how far we've come with technology and how things have changed.
absolutely. Those old IBM and Tandy computers
Yeah.
with the modem that still had
Hmm.
the phone hookup. Yeah. All right. Um, let's see here. What was the best part of your experience uh, in your time of service with the military, with the Air Force? The
Wow.
camaraderie you had mentioned, I know.
Yeah. I mean, the camaraderie. And the experiences that we had, the places that we lived, and the fact that the Air Force was very good to not only me but to my family. I have a wife and I have, 4 children. While we were in the military, um, we had 3 of our 4 children, but I mean, it was a good experience for them as well. And I got to do some pretty neat things. I mean, when I was in Charleston, we built a new clinic, so I was very involved with that. When I was in Japan, we were kind of at the end of the supply chain pipeline, and so a lot of challenges there, but a lot of good work and camaraderie. In Italy, I got to be part of a project where I was project manager, where we had 2 floors of an Italian hospital that we had U.S. Air Force forces combined with the Italian hospital
Mm-hmm.
inside the Italian hospital, which is pretty cool. And and then at Wright Patterson, when I came back and finished up my career, had some great experiences there with people I worked with and doing some things for the mission.
Absolutely. Were there any awards, medals, or citations for your time in service that you would like to share about?
Um, I mean, I have meritorious service medals. I guess good conduct. You should be happy about that with your time in the military. It's to be expected. But and I had various awards, company grade officer of the quarter, and things like that. But I think it was really more about the people I served with and the mission that we did, and some of the things that we faced
Absolutely.
together as a team.
So, when you left the service, what occupational field did you pursue then, and what are you currently doing?
So when I first left the service, and I think for a lot of folks, it's a whole new transition. You're midlife, and you're trying to figure out what am I going to do with the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I started out, and I was worked as a consultant with a contracting firm, a DoD contracting firm, consulting firm, and uh, it was a very funny transition. I worked for a small firm, and so their cash flow was very poor. So we would get paid once a month, and 10 out of those 13 months, my pay was essentially 2 to 3 weeks late. And I had 3 small children at home and said, I can't do this for the rest of my life. So back then, Monster.com was big. I got out there and searched for a job, and I hooked up with a Fortune 500 company, what turned out to be a Fortune 500 company. So I got involved with them as a business manager. And then I was on the road a lot, away from my family, and wanted to really reside in the community. We lived in a great military community, Dayton, Ohio, and I wanted to not have to move my family around anymore, since we did that in the military. So I looked for jobs there, and a friend of mine worked for the VA there, and so I taught her about the VA in Dayton, and I started out and got a job in surgical services as a health system specialist. I was there, but then about after 3 years, got recruited back to the private sector by the company that I worked for, and went back to work for them for a couple of years. And once again, it was just pretty demanding on the road. A lot of changes in the healthcare world as far as buyouts and things like that. And then there was another opportunity back in the VA. So I got started back with the VA in 2007. And I ran what we call our contact centers. Now I ran one of those for 45 facilities across the VA, one of the best jobs I've ever had. And then the opportunity came to get into executive leadership. So I got an executive leadership. I was an assistant director, an associate director, and then I became a medical center director. So I was a medical center director at Chillicothe VA, at Cincinnati VA, and now I'm the medical center director at the Dayton VA. So that's kind of what I've been doing since then.
Pretty impressive. Thank you. All right. Do you have any hobbies? And also, is there any once in a lifetime events that you've been able to be a part of or do besides your military time, so outside of military time?
I'll start with my hobbies. So, right now, what I really like to do is spend some time outside. I like to golf. I'm trying to continue to get better at that, but that's been a long, bittersweet journey sometimes. Life is about the seasons of life, and that sometimes in your life you have more time to devote to things than others. Golf takes a fair amount of time to do, and so when you have small kids at home, it's not easy to carve out that time. And then when it's just you and your wife, there's probably times when she's glad that you're gone for 4 hours at a time. So, but I really enjoy golf. I also enjoy bicycling. I do both of those things with my friends and my kids. So it's not only the sport and the activity, but it's the socialization that I really enjoy with that too, the time together.
Absolutely.
Once in a lifetime activities. Wow. Um, I would have to say, probably the 4 years I spent in Italy were like you know, just 4 great years of my adult life. And so, uh, to visit places is one thing. To live in an environment like that for an extended period of time was pretty special.
Hmm. Absolutely. All right. So next, we're going to cover some reflections, right? So, how did or how does your military service experiences affect your life? What did you learn? What life lessons were you able to learn and then bring forward to your current life?
I think some of the life lessons that I learned were definitely, resilience. That a lot of times you just have to, you may be in a situation that's hard. You may be in a situation that is just difficult to deal with. But, if you just keep moving forward, uh, you know, um, I believe there's a plan for all of our lives. I believe there's a plan for my life. I believe everything happens for a reason. And sometimes just persevere, and I think the military helps you do that.
Amen. Absolutely. I know for me, they definitely taught me
Yeah.
what dedication and determination and hard work will get you.
Yeah.
Uh, so a couple more questions here, and concluding our interview was, what do you wish more people knew about veterans or military services, the military branches in general?
I wish more people knew about the sacrifice. People in the military give up their personal freedoms for a period of time to on behalf of others. um, the United States military is our country's insurance policy to preserve the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of our citizens. And that
Amen.
goes back to our Constitution.
Hmm.
And I think that, most folks they don't take it for granted, because right now is the best time for you to be a veteran, because people really appreciate veterans like
Hmm.
never before, and through all eras. But I think we have an opportunity to continue to tell that story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what are one of the things that you would like people to really take away from your journey that you've been able to share here today?
I think we live in a great country. I think that for me, uh, there were opportunities that I think your attitude is everything, and to seek out those opportunities, to whether it's education or whether it's continuing to build your skills to be the best version of yourself that you can be. I think in the VA, one of the things I'm most excited about is our mission. As far as we want to promote health, we want to partner with veterans to give them the best lives that they can have. We all have an expiration date, and we want to make the days that we have on this earth of the best quality and the most quantity that they can be, a combination thereof. And so, I think that's what we're here to do, and the mission that I have right now, and we all have in the VA.
Absolutely. Putting the veteran first. Only reason we're here, right?
Hmm.
So, is there anything else that you would like to add or that you thought we may not have covered that you would like to speak about now?
Just one thing, and I'm just starting to get a little bit more comfortable to talk about this. Um, the mission that we have is to take care of our veterans and their families. Kind of changing Lincoln's words a little bit. And what I can tell you is that I'm a product of the VA. My father was a Navy veteran during World War II. He experienced combat, became a recruiter for a period of time, and then when the Korean War came about, he was called back to duty. When he was in World War II, he was like a single guy, I mean, but the military defined him. It gave him
Mhm.
a sense of purpose. He was good at what he did. But when it came time to go back to war again, he had a family and children and a wife that he loved and cared about, and he had a nervous breakdown on the ship to the Pacific, and it ended his military service, which is now what we would call PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you have that type of response. But my father did receive care through the VA in New York, where we lived, and you know, my father had a lot of struggles, and what I can tell you is that the care that he received from the VA probably, you know, made him a better father, a better husband, a better worker, and really helped him just have, you know, have a life that stabilized the life for me. So the work that we do is vitally important, and it makes a difference, and I feel like I represent that, you know, from
Absolutely.
firsthand.
Absolutely. Mr. Murdock, I want to thank you
Thank
not
you.
only as an employee of the VA, but also as a veteran. Thank you for having the heart to give back to our veterans and always leading from the front and putting our veterans first.
Well,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
sitting with us
Thank you for
today.
your service, and thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right.